Hello and welcome to your Friday edition of the Rangers Rabble podcast. I'm Martin Douglas and I am joined tonight by my two good friends, Cammy and Wilf. Gentlemen, how are you?
Very well, thank you, Martin.
Very good, Martin.
Right, we will be joined later on in the show by the Sunday Mail's chief football writer, Scott McDermott. But before we get Scott on, I thought, obviously, Wilf, you'd done the live reaction last night. But I thought we would just quickly touch on last night's game. Cammy, I'll come to you first. A lot of changes made. I thought we played okay, considering the amount of changes we made. What did you make it?
Okay, I mean, I think, to be honest with you, there was a slight change to the shape as well. I think Davis and Kamara playing that wee bit deeper, But I think certainly the first 10 minutes we looked like a team that had just met, sort of situation, But I thought we sort of found our way into the match. We got ourselves into a winning position with a nice goal from Scott Wright, but we just couldn't see it through, But I think with that number of changes, I think you're not going to get a fluent, free-flowing performance. I think against a side, if you were playing against a Hamilton or somebody like that, but St Johnstone are a very well organised and well drilled side. So I think going in without your sort of key attackers, I think the game pretty much went as expected. I think I was talking to Wilf at half time last night, and even though the first half hadn't been great, I thought we would do enough to win the game, which is until the 93rd minute we had done enough to win the game, sort of thing, But over the piece, I would say probably a draw was probably a fair result for what both sides had put into it.
Hold on, you were talking to Wilf at half time. How come none of you were talking to me at half time?
I was too busy trying to do that. I was trying to do the Rangers quiz.
Exactly.
Talk to Cammy, watch the ladies' game. You know what I mean? I don't get time to speak to you as well.
How did you get on with the quiz, by the way?
Oh, disaster.
As usual. That time you told me you get 15 out of 18. I don't believe you.
I did. I was fifth. I got 3 wrong.
I'll message Colin and ask.
You can ask him. He'll tell you.
But well, obviously last night, look, you were on the match reaction. The good thing, I suppose, about doing a podcast the next day or the day after is you get a kind of chance to reflect. And did I maybe get that wrong? Was I right about that? And I did notice in the live reaction you spoke about you were surprised at how many changes Gerrard made. Can you understand why he done it though? I mean, the league was wrapped up after the first game of the season. He's trying to give players a rest. He's trying to give players games, obviously, who haven't had much. 7 changes, normally you would say that's far too many, but under the circumstances, can you understand why Gerrard done it?
I absolutely do, yeah. I mean, I do understand why he made so many. I'm just surprised because it's not really what he does. And, he's on record as saying, staying unbeaten this season in the league doesn't win you anything, but it would be nice to have. And after admitting that he made a few mistakes in that game in Paisley in December that we don't like talking about, I didn't expect as many changes just because of that, because of the way he was. But I mean, I also noticed. I didn't notice it before for the live reaction last night because I didn't see his interview by that point. But when he came out and said that everything he did last night was for Sunday. Everything that he did, and he's never done that before. So it was basically just get this game over and get it out of the way. So making so many changes lessened the chance of a big player, if you like, getting injured or getting sent off or something happening. So I can understand why he made the changes, but I'll stick by what I said last night. I'm still very surprised he made so many.
Does that maybe say, Cammy, that look, maybe I'm totally wrong here? Like I say on nearly every podcast, I usually am wrong. But does that maybe say that Gerrard and the players aren't they really that bothered about this whole unbeaten run? Making that many changes, the only other time he's done it is, like we say, that game that we will not discuss. Because I think if we do go on and win the cup, we'll all be kicking ourselves that we're not sitting here with a treble. But I forgot where that question was going, but you get my gist.
I do think they are shooting for an unbeaten record and 100 points, but I think winning the Scottish Cup is the main priority.
Mm-hmm.
I genuinely believe that we will go unbeaten, get 100 points, and win the Scottish Cup. So I think we'd obviously been in conversations during the course of yesterday on Twitter and group messages and stuff, and I was expecting a lot of changes. I expected Simpson to get a chance because Hillander's always needed to be managed. He's not the type of guy that can play. And I think the start was we've got 8 games in the next 30 days, assuming we make it to the Scottish Cup final. I think, to be honest with you, I think if the likes of Ryan Jack or even Zungu had been available, I think he would probably have liked to have given Davis or Kamara the night off as well, to be perfectly honest with you. That's I think we are a little bit light in certain positions for the rest of this season. So it is. I think it showed in the performance that it was as much as they're all good players, and on paper it still looked an exciting lineup, and we were going to the sort of relationships and the fluency just wasn't there. But it's I totally understand, and when the gaffer comes out post match and just tells you like it is, then you say, well, that's why he's the manager, and he knows what each player's sort of capabilities are. And I think disappointing to lose that goal right at the end, but it's we're still on track for 100 points, and I'm still very confident we'll do that.
The other thing you've got to remember as well, with respect to the amount of changes, is the guys that came in, and they did look a bit rusty at the start because we know they've never played together, etc. But a lot of them hadn't played at all in weeks and months because of the current situation. There are no other games than the first team games. There's no B team games. There's no reserve games. There's no youth league. There's nothing. So guys like Bassey who came off the bench. That's the first time he's kicked the ball since the last time he was in the first team. Same with Jack Simpson. So these guys aren't getting any game time at all. So that's another way to look at it, with the amount of changes that he made to give these guys a bit of time, because they're not getting games of any description. They can't even play bounce games. So they're getting no football at all.
I know, and we'll come on to Bassey and Patterson a little bit later. But just coming back to the changes, obviously the 7 changes made. Were you surprised that even though we didn't have a Jack or a Zungu, that Davis still played? Because, I mean, look, I get what Davis does, and I actually thought Davis was really good. Davis is just so good at what he does, right? But see, just for that one game, considering the amount of changes he made, could you not have threw even though I don't like him in it, could you not have threw a Joe Aribo into midfield or a Hadji into midfield to cover Davis and give him that time off?
I think he might have considered that if Tav wasn't back. I think one of the reasons Davis was in was to keep an eye on Tav and back him up. Because obviously he's still well short in fitness. I think that was his first game in 10 weeks. So I think covering for him was one of the reasons that Davis was in the starting lineup. And incidentally, I believe that was Stephen Davis's 55th match of the season last night.
That would have been nice. That would have been nice if it fell on the cup game. Well, it would have been nice if it fell on the cup game. You know what I mean? I suppose the one thing we have to talk about last night, Cammy, and Stephen Gerrard didn't make much about it post-match, and I think Stephen Gerrard even said that St Johnstone's penalty that they scored from was a penalty. But that refereeing performance last night for me was, and look, we could sit here probably every week and say that refereeing performance wasn't up to standard, but I just felt last night that was the first time in a while that we've seen a really, really honking refereeing performance.
To be honest, I'd never ever heard of the guy
no.
prior to last night, which makes me think it was a competition winner that it was just giving him a match. You know what I mean? I think he was absolutely stinking for both sides, to be perfectly honest with you. It was just, you could almost see Stephen Gerrard at the end of the game. He sort of had a wee chuckle to Callum Davidson, and there's been a bit of banter on the touchline during the course of the game, and I think both managers would be You know, I mean, where did they get these people from?
Mm-hmm.
You know, it's just, listen, I get it's a difficult job, but that guy last night. Oh.
But Cammy, it's not difficult to get the obvious ones right.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I mean, it's not difficult to get the easy ones right. And I mean, I'm sure we've had him before because I definitely recognise his name. I'm sure we've had him at least a couple of times before. But the one that I'm still laughing at was about 10 or 15 minutes from the end when the St Johnstone player, I can't remember who it was shielding the ball from Jermaine Defoe, making no attempt to play it, and he gave him a free kick. Defoe just went to the referee. Defoe didn't even challenge for the ball because he knew he'd have to climb over the guy to get it, and the guy was twice the size of him. You know, and he gave St Johnstone a free kick.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that was almost as laughable as the penalty that he gave, and then decided he better speak to the linesman, which is what he should have done in the first place.
Yeah. I mean, and on that, Wilf, by the way, the penalty that was given, that was then the decision was then changed. And I don't know if anybody watched the game on St Johnstone TV. And I think that Derek McInnes has got a fabulous career ahead of him as a commentator. Honestly, guys, he's absolutely dreadful. But you know, it was Derek McInnes, and I thought, oh, here we go. All we're going to hear about now is this overturned penalty. But never in a million years was that a penalty.
But I don't even know what he gave it for. I mean, did he originally give it for the supposed handball or for the challenge?
I think it was for the looking at it, I thought it was for the challenge. But then when you look back,
because on Rangers TV, I watched it on Rangers TV from Paris, and watching it on Rangers TV, both Tom Miller and Andy Little thought it was for the handball. You know what I mean? So we don't even know what he gave it for.
Mm-hmm.
Not a clue. Don't know. I mean, the top bottom line is it's basic stuff. If you're not sure, consult your linesman. Don't make a decision, then go and speak to him. And that's basic. I mean, my daughter texted me. She just finished watching it at her mother's, and she texted me and she went, "What's this referee doing? Why is he giving the decision then speaking to the linesman?" She says, "I've never seen that before." And she's watched an awful lot of football. You know what I mean? It's just it defies logic. It's just he was an absolute disgrace.
No, he was. Sorry, hold on. I have just been informed that I have a burger waiting for me. So that's going to be cold by the end of this podcast anyway. But sorry, Cammy, on to you for the penalties as well. You know, first of all, what was the one that they scored, the one that was given in the last minute? Was that a penalty?
No, never in a month of Sundays. The boys stuck the penalty away well, but for me, never a penalty. But having said that, I was watching the game in the Netherlands, so it was a little bit hazy. So my recollection of the individual instance isn't clear. But for me, it was never a penalty.
My flight wouldn't connect, so I had to stay at home and watch it on St Johnstone TV. So just finally then on the game, well, obviously we've seen Captain Tav back. Obviously and we'll come on to discuss it later on, but with the result today, he looks quite far away from being fully fit.
He does, but that hour he got yesterday, will have done him a power of good. That'll give him minutes that he sorely needed, and I've got no doubt they'll manage him properly with his training time and stuff between now and Sunday. And I've got no qualms with him coming back into the team at all. And the team will just play better with him knowing that he's there, I think.
Aye. I suppose, Cammy, he gives you that kind of that calm that a lot of people, when he was first made captain, obviously a lot of people, and we've discussed this 100 million times, so I won't go too much into it, but a lot of people, he's not a captain, he's not this, he's not that. He's been a huge miss since he's been out.
100. I mean, even though Nathan Patterson's been fantastic, you know, I think even the players, you know, there is that sort of tabs at right back. Just, I think he just played himself in last night. I don't think he tried to do anything too complicated. He's not had a lot of time on the training field, and I think Celtic. Yeah, I think he only trained Friday, Saturday before the Celtic game. Even before that game, maybe only had 3 sessions, proper sessions with the squad, and then he's played 60 minutes, a bit of recovery, and maybe a day or two's training before Sunday. But then you've got a week leading into the last Old Firm game, sort of thing. So he'll be able to get a wee bit of more time on the training field. I mean, his fitness is there. I think it's just getting that confidence back on the ball, and I think he'll just be wanting to ease himself in gently without. He doesn't need to do anything too complicated. I think other players are going to have to step up creatively. I think the other fullback, I think Borna, you might get a situation where rather than the 2 fullbacks bombing on, one of them, it might be Tav, just almost sits just as the right back, and we're relying on Borna on the left hand side to provide more of the attacking threat for the fullback areas.
I know, but look, it finished 1 each. Look, 7 changes. I still think we looked okay, and I don't think we can really take too much complaints away from it. Right, so welcome into the podcast now, as of course the Sunday Mail's chief football writer, Scott McDermott. Scott, how are you?
I'm good. Yourself?
Yeah, not bad. Right, so we'll just kind of jump into today's kind of breaking news. Scott, and I'll come to you first. Obviously, the SFA coming back, rejecting Rangers' appeal. So the ban stands 6 games and 2 suspended. Were you surprised at all?
I'm not really surprised, no. Mainly because I think we have got used to a bit of inconsistency, obviously, for the SFA regarding various disciplinary issues. That does seem quite harsh. Obviously, when you look at Rangers will be comparing it to volleyball and goalie, I'm assuming, which I think, you will correct me if I'm wrong, 5 games with 2 suspended, so it was like 3 games. So, for what he did in terms of leaving the country and going to Spain, coming back, training and playing, I mean, it does seem a lot worse than what these boys have done. Now, we don't know the exact details, but listening to Steven Gerrard, and just for what I've heard, with snippets and stuff, I mean, it sounds as if a few of them have gathered in a house. I don't think it lasted that long for what I've heard before people kind of get out of there. So it doesn't seem as bad, and I think that was the basis of Rangers' appeal. When you listen to Gerrard, I think that he wanted the SFA to take the actual circumstances into consideration. I think he thought that's why the appeal would be successful. And if you think the ball and goalie, 5 games, 2 suspended, then you think the Aberdeen boys, who obviously were outside and had a meal and that, I think they were just a suspended ban. I think Rangers have been thinking that these 5 boys probably deserve something in between, whereas it looks to me to be in the kind of high scale, high scale ban up there with the ball and goalie incident, which I think Rangers have certainly got grounds to feel slightly aggrieved at that. But in terms of the SFA handing out the ban and then having the appeal, it doesn't surprise me too much.
No, and Wilf, I think we were expecting, there goes Cammy's camera again. We were expecting, obviously, I think the appeal to come back a few days ago. In fact, I'll just ask you quickly, Scott, do you know why that was delayed?
I don't actually. I was speaking to somebody about it yesterday. I've got no idea. I know obviously the Daily journalists were expecting it yesterday or the day before it was due. So they were waiting on it. So I don't know if there's been an explanation or if somebody's explained why. Somebody at SFA's explained why it was slightly delayed, but they've obviously announced it today.
So yeah, Wilf, your thoughts?
I thought when they announced the 6 games with 2 suspended, I thought that was to give them a bit of leverage so that if Rangers appealed, which they probably expected us to, they could knock a game off and say, well, look, it's the same as ball and goalie and we've compromised. Quite often you get the football authorities will do that. They'll come in high, expecting an appeal, then they can drop it off, and I drop half of it off, and everybody's quite happy. But I'm I'm not at all surprised that they left it the way it is, but the fact it's taken them nearly 48 hours to come out with the outcome of it, to me, is ridiculous, because we could quite easily done without the band players last night. Patterson and Bassey didn't have to feature last night, and that'd have been one of the games out the way. For me, the only thing I can think of is because I believe the appeal hearing didn't start till 6 o'clock on Tuesday, which means it went on kind of into the evening. And Brian Kinnear was on the bench, I think is it Annan he's at? I think he was on the bench for Annan. So obviously, if they then turned around yesterday and said, well, the bands stand, but he effectively played on the Tuesday night, Rangers might have gone back to him, well, hold on, how could he have been involved on Tuesday night? I don't know. That's probably thinking too much into it. But that's the only reason I can think for leaving it so late to give us the outcome of the appeal.
I noticed how you made a wee bandstand, and that was quite a nice wee wordplay. Well, that's quite smart for you. But Cammy, on a more serious note, look, Scott's mentioned it there. Look, ball and goalie. You've got Celtic in Dubai. You've got Aberdeen players. So for you, with your kind of most unbiased head on, does the punishment fit the crime?
No, not at all. I mean, Scott talks about inconsistencies. Rangers in their statement talk about inconsistencies, how the SFA are doing it differently to pretty much every other association. You think about down south, there's the Leicester players recently breaching COVID regulations. Brendan Rodgers took them out. Apparently, if the club doesn't do anything, it's pretty much a 1-game ban. That's the way that they're looking at the sort of punishments. But all these things should have been sorted at the start of the season. It was like, that would be too much like organisation. In this situation, if you do this, you get a 3-game ban, a 4-game ban, a 5-game ban. It sums up the way that the SFA go about their business. I'm not surprised at all that the punishment stands. Unfortunately, that pretty much ends Nathan Patterson's season, which is unfortunate given the form he's in, But Rangers' relationship with the SFA's, I don't think there is a relationship, to be perfectly honest with you.
The irony is we're talking about inconsistency, but no, I suppose the SFA would say, well, we are consistent because their ban ties in with the ball and goalie ban. But I think that's the point. That's where the inconsistency is. I think surely each case has to be taken on its own merits. And when Rangers appealed it, because at the start I was slightly surprised that they appealed. I just thought they would take their medicine, just get on with it. But I'm positive that Gerrard, once he knew the facts of what actually happened that night, I'm confident that he thought, there's genuine grounds for appeal here. Well, once they hear what's happened, it will surely get reduced. But I think that's where the surprise and the disappointment will come in for Rangers' point of view. So as I say, the SFA probably do think they've been consistent when you compare ball and goal to these 5 boys. But to me, that's the point. You can't just... surely you've got to look at each incident in isolation and then decide how big a punishment it deserves.
Well, I mean, for me, they can't even say it's comparable with ball and goalies, because as you said, Scott, ball and goalie went abroad, came back, trained and played. Yeah. These players were caught in a house doing whatever, playing board games or whatever the rumours are they were doing, and they went to Rangers and said, look, we've made a mess of this. We've done this and we shouldn't have. So they basically admitted to their wrongdoing. Whereas ball and goalie came back, played a game of football, and he could, he could have infected his own teammates, and I think it was Kilmarnock they were playing, and the Kilmarnock players as well. To me, it's not comparable at all, but the punishment's more severe. I just don't get it at all.
No, and Scott, Cammy made a good point there about Nathan Patterson. Obviously, now that's Nathan Patterson's season over. So from a Rangers point of view, taking that away from a COVID point of view, does that now rule Patterson out of the Euros?
It wouldn't for me, no. I think I pretty much decided after watching Nathan Patterson the last few weeks, when you look at the European game, but especially the Celtic game, I mean, I know there's no a crowd there, obviously, so you've not got that kind of pressure pot environment or atmosphere, but how he handled that Old Firm game, how he handled the European game. I just think from a Scotland point of view, he should be in that squad. I think we're toiling for right backs. With due respect to boys like Stephen O'Donnell and Liam Palmer. I just think you get into a youth. Steve Clarke must have been watching the Old Firm game thinking, we need to have this guy in and about it. Now, it might be he's probably going to have 2 right backs in the squad, so I would like to think he would even get in as the kind of second choice initially. But no, I don't think, it's a blow. He's going to miss these games and he's not going to get that kind of momentum, but I would like to think Steve Clarke's seen enough, and he'd have spoke to Steven Gerrard, no doubt about him. I'd like to think he's seen enough to think, well, I need to have him in there. I need to have him in this squad for the summer.
Well, see, that's the point, Cammy. Listen, we're obviously biased. We're Rangers supporters. We've seen him play 5, 6, 7 games, whatever. To me, anyway, I'm not a football coach or whatever, but I don't think Stephen O'Donnell already could lace Patterson's boots. But with the ban coming, will Steve Clarke feel under pressure not to pick him, or will Steve Clarke just not pick him? I suppose not for a Scotland point of view or a supporter's point of view, but for Steve Clarke's own personal point of view.
Listen, Steve Clarke's got to pick the best. His job as Scotland manager is to pick the best players available. And come when he names his squad, Nathan Patterson will be available to him. So the ban or SFA allegiances or whatever you want to call it, that just shouldn't come into Steve Clarke's thinking. If it does, then he's not doing his job properly. And listen, you are saying about being biased towards Patterson and that, of course. But listen, if you'd have said to me a few months ago, should have been in the squad, I would have said no, because he's not played enough football. I hadn't seen enough of him. Hadn't proved enough, at a certain level. But I just think in the last month to 6 weeks, and the games that he's played in between the European games and obviously the Old Firm game. I said to somebody last night, I was at Pittodrie last night for the Aberdeen Celtic game, and we were talking about John Joe Kenny at Celtic. Now, if Everton were going to sell John Joe Kenny this summer, which they might do, I reckon Everton would probably want between 10 and 12 million for him, 10, 12, 13 million for him, because he's played in the Bundesliga, he's played in the Premier League, he's at a decent age. Premier League money, we know what the fees are like down there. Honestly, they would be looking for upwards of 10 million, I think, for John Joe Kenny for a permanent transfer. And yet, in the Old Firm game, Nathan Patterson looked every bit the player John Joe Kenny has, if not more. So that's going to be encouraging for Rangers.
What about yourself, Cammy? I know you're not really the biggest Scotland fan in the world, but Nathan Patterson, do you think he might make that Scotland team? Do you think Steve Clarke might pick him?
I think Scott's bang on. If you're picking it based on picking the best players, the ban shouldn't actually have any input in it, because there's going to be players probably within that squad that aren't playing every week anyway. There's a few contenders that have barely kicked a ball this season, and they're in contention. He's only 19, he's still going to be able to play for the Scotland under-21s when that starts, but I think for a Rangers point of view, I want him to get the summer off. From the players' point of view, I want him to go, because I think it would be, you think about up against England, it could be up against Foden or Sterling or somebody like that. It'll be good practice for Champions League next season, coming up against guys like that. So I think if I was a betting man, I think he'll probably make the squad.
No, me personally, I hope he does, because I might not be the biggest fan of Scotland anymore, but just for young Nathan himself, I would like to see him progress on that international stage. Now, Wilf, one thing I suppose that this ban does do, although it doesn't really matter about the league games, it's more the cup games, it leaves us kind of short in the full-back area. Obviously, Tav's just came back for a serious injury, and the St Johnstone game the other night, he looked okay, but he looked a million miles off anywhere near his top form. Borna Barisic has come under a little bit of criticism for his performances lately. So I suppose it does a tiny bit leave us short at fullback for these cup games.
Oh, it definitely leaves us short, because that two's all we've got now. You know, because the two backup players are now suspended until the last game of the season if we beat St Johnstone on Sunday. You know, because they'd both be available for the Aberdeen game if we get to the semi-final. Because obviously that would be the last game of their ban. Or sorry, the second last game of their ban in the Livingston game. But yeah, I mean, it leaves it short. But going back to your point about the Euro squad, I think as both Scots were saying, it would be good for the player himself, you know, for Patterson to get the experience, and even if he didn't play, just to be involved in the squad environment at a national tournament, I think it would be great for him. But personally, and not taking my blue tinted specs off, if he was in the squad, I would pull him straight out again.
I'm surprised.
But that's just a selfish Rangers point of view.
I get that, but I suppose if you want to look at it from a selfish Rangers point of view, Scott, Nathan Patterson plays for this country, regardless of what country it is. It puts his value up.
100%. I mean, what a stage for him if he gets games at the Euros. I mean, I could see him. I could maybe envisage a situation where he goes in with O'Donnell as a kind of backup right back, but no, once Clark has a look at him, they're going to a training camp. They've got 2 friendlies before the Euros against Portugal and against Holland and Luxembourg, and Portugal, I think. So, I mean, what a platform for him. He go and prove himself to Clark, get himself in that team, and then have the whole of Europe watching him in the Euros, as Scott says. I mean, playing against England at Wembley, up against a Rashford or a Foden or whatever. I mean, if you're looking at it from a selfish point of view, for Rangers' selfish point of view, then I think you'd want him playing because let the whole of Europe see him, see his value soar. I know he's just in the team. You certainly don't want him going anywhere, but it's never a bad thing when clubs are looking at your players and showing a bit of interest. So I think it'd be brilliant. I think it'd be brilliant for Scotland, brilliant for the player, and actually great for Rangers if he managed to get himself in there.
And just very, very quickly, Cammy, on Calvin Bassey as well. Obviously, he's suspended. Not had probably the best start to his Rangers career, although he's very young. I think that's fair to say. Some games he's looked, don't get me wrong, the guy's a man mountain and he can run. But, I mean, this run in at the end of the season, but there's plenty of league games that he could have played. It's kind of, do you think that's dealt a blow to his kind of progression?
I think it's unfortunate. I mean, I think he had a relatively promising start in the games that he played before Christmas, but he had an absolute shocker at St Mirren middle of December, and I think he disappeared out the picture for a good few months after that. You know, but I think that there's potential there. You know, and I do wonder if a loan would actually benefit him next season. He came from Leicester development. I don't think he's played a lot of competitive football, you know. So, but again, the problem that you're going to have is Borna. I still think is one of the most likely to depart in the summer. So, I think that might impact. But it's definitely a blow for Bassey to get minutes. I mean, certainly Livingston. On the 12th of May, I think you'll probably see a similar amount of changes to what we did last night. That would have been the ideal sort of game to give Bassey and give Borna a wee rest, because you're effectively going to. Borna's got the Euros after the end of the season, you know, so he's not going to really get the opportunity to have a bit of rest prior to that, you know. But the other young players aren't really part. Zungu's obviously not been in the picture. He'll go back to his parent club, and the other 2 kids I think are both out of contract in the summer anyway, you know. So it's unfortunate for Calvin Bassey, but I've not written off his Rangers career just yet.
No, you never know. And there's been a lot of talk, obviously, about the possibility that Borna might not be at Rangers next season. But look, we'll need to wait and see. But we shall move on, Wilf, and we shall move on to what is now, obviously, at the weekend, the biggest game in Rangers season.
Yeah, it's certainly the biggest game. We've been saying all season the biggest game is the next game. This one's massive because all we've got left to play for is the Scottish Cup. And I mean, the fact that Steven Gerrard's interview last night tells you how much he wants to win that, because it's the first time he's come out and said that everything I did tonight was looking at another game. You know, he said everything I did tonight, he said everything he did on Wednesday, from the picking of the team, playing of the substitutes, the way the game played out, it was all looking ahead to the cup tie. But all we've had off him all season is one game at a time, the next game, the next game. But he's obviously, that tells me how important to him winning the Scottish Cup is.
It's absolutely vital in Scotland. Well, it's been a fantastic season for Rangers. We've won the league at a canter. You know, we've embarrassed Celtic quite a lot throughout the season with performances and results and stuff. But how much pressure, if that's fair, do you think is on Steven Gerrard and Rangers to now go and win this competition and make it a double?
Listen, at Rangers there's always pressure, and there should be that pressure on the manager. We did an interview with Alec McLeish today, and he just spoke about the expectation levels when you're Rangers manager. No, you win one trophy and you need to win the next one. That's just the rules in Glasgow at the Old Firm. So there is pressure, and so there should be. And I agree with what Wilf said. I mean, all the eggs are in one basket now for Rangers. I think Gerrard's doing the right thing. The unbeaten league season would be nice, and I think they'll do it. Despite missing a few players now, obviously, I still think they'll get through these 3 games unbeaten. But the priority now is the Scottish Cup, and he'll be absolutely desperate to win it. And I think everything will get into these quarter-final, semi-final, and final if they get there. And last night, I think he was right to make the changes, but I think even the way the game went, in terms of it being a bit of a struggle at times, and obviously being pegged back at the end, I actually think that will help Rangers and Gerrard come Sunday, because I think there'll be a bit of reaction for the players. I think you're going to get guys coming in fresh again, like Kent and Morelos, for instance, would be the main 2. And I think also St Johnstone's team won't change too much between last night and the weekend. That was just about their strongest team last night. Maybe 1 or 2, but no many, I don't think. So the Rangers players will know that it's going to be a tough tie on Sunday. They're not going to get it easy. Talking about Rangers having a great season, St Johnstone, Callum Davison have had a great season as well. They've got some good players, players that won't be phased going to Ibrox. So I think it'll be a difficult game. I mean, I expect Rangers to win, but as I say, I think last night would have actually been good for Rangers, just to make them aware it's not going to be easy. They're not going to get anything handed to them in this kind of run to the cup final. People think after you beat Celtic, it's a done deal and you've won it. So I think it'll actually benefit them. But getting players back, Morelos, Kent, Aribo and others coming back fresh, should be a huge advantage to Rangers come Sunday.
And look, we touched on it a little bit earlier, Cammy, but was there anything, I suppose, from last night that you've seen for St Johnstone with a much rotated Rangers team that would give you any doubts at all going into the weekend?
No, I think it'll be a hard game. They've gave us some decent matches this season, to be honest with you. I think certainly early in the season we scored a couple of goals in the first 15-20 minutes, which I think made the game far easier, but they're a well-organised side. Callum Davison's done a fine job, to be honest. I thought he'd have been in the running for the Aberdeen job. He's done such a good job. But no, I mean, I think again it's about what we do. It's about how we approach the game. It's the tempo that we play, and it's repeat everything that we've said before pretty much every game. The opposition's really irrelevant. It's about what Rangers goes on the pitch, and if we play at the right tempo, move the ball, get them moving about, I think we'll go through by a couple of goals.
I know, and Wilf, it's been a strange season, right? Because we've pretty much looked unbeaten apart from one game against St Mirren. But the fact that it's at Ibrox, the fact that we're unbeaten at Ibrox, we've only conceded, I don't even know, what is it, 4 goals or something? I mean, if I'm a St Johnstone player going into that and I'm playing Rangers at Ibrox, it's not filling me with much confidence.
No, I mean, they'll be looking at it saying that we are really, really difficult to beat at Ibrox. Because we haven't been beaten, I haven't dropped anything at Ibrox domestically.
Exactly.
And echoing everything Cammy says, it's all down to what we do. It's all down to what Rangers do. You know, we move the ball about quickly, take them to places they don't want to go, use the whole size of the park, every blade of grass on the park. I think we'll win quite comfortably, and that's not going to be easy because they don't give up a lot of goals, but they also don't score a lot of goals. So if you get a couple ahead, you're not really in much danger because St Johnstone really don't score a lot of goals.
I know, and by the way, I should just say very quickly, and I hope I get this right, it's Big Phil Hollander's birthday today. So a big happy birthday to Phil Hollander. No, unless, because you know how sometimes when you look on Twitter and you'll see a post and then you don't look up and it's like 2 days. You know what I mean? I do that all the time, right?
I'm sure he's a regular, he listens to all the pods, to be honest with you.
Oh, he does. Him and all his family and all the Rangers team. Everybody listens to this podcast. All 200 people.
All of them Cammy's on them.
Aye. Very popular manager, Cammy. Right, so Cammy, obviously changes to the team for Sunday. With another 7-8 changes.
I think we're back to the team selection last night told its own story. You know, I think we're back to the situation that we were before the Celtic game. I think nine of the side picks itself. It depends. I think he'll play the side that played against Celtic, to be perfectly honest with you. But you could equally see him going in with Roof, Morelos and Kent. You could drop Aribo back. I think 9 of the 11 positions are pretty much nailed on, but it really depends tactically. I mean, Aribo played fantastically well on Sunday, but he was up against Laxalt, which will be a different kettle of fish to what he's going to face. Just different styles of play, and I think without criticising, I think both Celtic fullbacks, I thought tactically we played very clever. Kent played centrally a heck of a lot on Sunday, rather than out wide up against Kenny. Whereas on the other side, Aribo was wide. I mean, he was right on the touchline sort of situation. So I think we'll go back to the starting 11, but I think I wouldn't be surprised to see Roof start and Aribo potentially dropping back into the midfield, which I'm not his biggest fan in the middle three, but I think it depends what Michael Beale and his tactical work, what he thinks. I'm not really sure what we've done against St Johnstone, what the front three's been in the previous games at Ibrox, you know, but maybe Roof would be an extra body, you know, because I think they play 3 at the back, St Johnstone.
Yeah.
So potentially you've got Buff up there causing chaos against 3 centre halves. You might want an extra attacking threat rather than Aribo or a Scott Wright, you know. So, but that's for Michael Beale and Stephen Gerrard to decide.
We never ever talk tactics on this, Cammy. Please don't start talking tactics. Scott, I suppose. Look, I mean, Stephen Gerrard hasn't really changed much in the way of team shape against many teams this season, and I think the majority of the Rangers team kind of picks itself. Obviously, you'll have McGregor, you'll probably have Tav. You'll need to have Tav, Goldson, Hollander, Barisic, and then you'll have Davis and Kamara. Now it's who he puts beside Davis and Kamara, and then you'll have Kent, Morelos, and then whoever he decides to put on that right hand side. So that's your Aribo, your Hadji, maybe Arfield in midfield. Who do you see him going with?
I think it will probably be the same as the Old Firm game. Obviously with Tav coming in, but I think he probably sees that as his strongest team right at this moment in time, and he'll want, as we touched on before, prioritising the cup now. I think he'll want his strongest possible team. So I would expect Arfield to be in midfield and Aribo out in the right again, especially after playing so well against Celtic. I mean, Scott's saying about the way St Johnstone line up, and he's right, but with the back three, you would maybe tinker with it, maybe to try and get guys, the front guys wider. So you'd maybe go with somebody else. But with Rangers fullbacks kind of bombing on, if there is space in the kind of fullback areas where they're playing 3 at the back, Rangers will exploit it anyway. With the Kent or Aribo coming inside and the fullbacks going past them. So, listen, again, I don't think Gerrard will think too much about tactics. As Scott touched on earlier on, it's about attitude in these games. If Rangers are at it, and they're at it for the start and the attitude's right, which it should be, because this is the only trophy left to go for. then no, there should only be one winner. The danger in these games is if players, if they step off it, if they think it's going to be comfortable, and they get caught cold. But I think he'll put his best team out, and I think if they're at it for the start, then we should have too many problems.
Is there a slight worry, Wilf, and we kind of touched on it earlier as well, about Tav maybe not being 100% fully fit, that we might be losing a bit of creativity in that team?
Yeah, I think so. I think that is a slight worry, but I think he'll do the same as Wednesday night's game, and that one of the midfield, either Davis or Kamara, will sort of shadow Tav, keep an eye on him, just make sure he's okay. And I think, like the boys were saying, I think he'll start with the same team as he did in the Old Firm game, because you can always bring on guys like Scott Wright, and Scott Wright's proved that he can come on and get hold of the pace of the game very, very quickly. So you could quite easily bring him on after an hour if it's not going too well. If we need that impetus up front, you can bring him on. So I think the team will be the same as it was against that other lot.
Right, okay, right. Well, so we'll quickly wrap it up then, and I'll just come to you for predictions now. Scott, as a professional journalist and football watcher, I'm expecting you to be quite close to the result here. So give me a result, and we always like a wee first goal scorer as well.
I'll go. I think it'll be 2-0 Rangers, and first scorer Ryan Kent.
Right, Wilf.
I was also going to say 2-0 because they don't give up a lot of goals. But I'll go 3-0 just so that I'm not the same as Scott. I don't want to be caught with the professionals. So I'll go 3-0. First goal scorer, Alfredo Morelos.
Oh, Cammy's shaking his head at that.
I was going for 2-0. Scott's nicked that one. I'll go for 3-0. Right, I'll go for 4-0, and I will go Alfredo Morelos with the first goal.
Well, there you go.
Martin, I'll leave you 1-0 or 5-0.
I'm going to go 2-0. I'm going to go Connor Goldson for the first goal. There you go. So if any of these are wrong, Scott, that's just embarrassing for you, mate, as a professional football watcher. But listen, Scott, Cammy, Wilf, guys, thanks very much for coming on.
No bother, thanks, man.
Thank you, everybody, for listening. We will be back on Sunday with live reaction and then back with your usual midweek podcast. So thank you, everybody, for listening, and we shall speak to you again very, very soon.